Let's go to this conversation. ANC Treasurer-General Paul Mashatile has released a set of rules for the nomination and election of National Executive Committee members for the much-anticipated December elective conference. Now, those hoping to be in the top 6, for example, will have to declare all sources of funding, and the 11-page document also says no candidate may use any form of negative campaigning against another group. Let's explore this further now and speak to Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast, a political analyst. Dr. Breakfast, thank you so much for your time. Before we get to this document by the Electoral Committee, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what we saw in Parliament during that Section 194 inquiry today. I mean, Kwabane's lawyers saying that they are going to move to compel the president. If he doesn't want to, give evidence, they'll do so, even through a summons. And we saw that statement by the president yesterday.
Thank you very much, Bongi, for having me. You are putting me on the spot. But anyway, I think, Bongi, we need a strong public protector that operates outside the powers that be in order to deepen our democracy. But of late, there have been some operations in that office that are questionable. Of course, there seems to be this tension between the public protector, the one that is on suspension, and the president. I think the president yesterday did confirm that he doesn't have to appear before Parliament in terms of the investigation that is underway. But there are questions, though, to be asked to him. For instance, why did he drag his feet and not suspend the public protector on the spot when he should have? Why did he wait until there was a complaint that was laid about him to the public protector? So it's going to be interesting how these things are going to play themselves out.
And the electoral, committee saying that, and moving to this document now, they say, and I'm borrowing from it, we need cadres who have proven leadership and political capacity, a good track record, public standing and moral integrity to provide leadership to the ANC, the motive forces of our struggle and society in general. And this I'm just borrowing from one of the paragraphs. Does the ANC have this kind of cadre, and could we see them stand up to take up leadership positions in December?
Bongi, as it stands, the ANC has a long-standing document called Through the Eye of the Needle, which lays down the law in terms of how the ANC needs to elect its leaders. But the challenge is that of late, most ANC leaders have been in and out of court. And most charges, they revolve around corruption. And that shows that corruption is not just a buzzword, but is institutionalized. But of course, I understand that people are presumed innocent until they are found guilty. But that argument sometimes is used to refuse to take a responsibility. On the surface, my definition of a leader is that a leader is nothing else but someone that you look up to. But I'm not sure if most South Africans can say the same thing about ANC leaders. The second issue is that we are told by the ANC that the strength of the ANC lies at branch level. But let's face it, most branch leaders, not all of them, most of them, in private, they receive brown envelopes. And meaning that even the democratic outcomes of those, discussions, they are also politically engineered. And so it's really useless to have all these documents if the processes are being managed by other people.
And especially when you go back even to the January 8th statement, it was very big on branches, talking about how they need to go back and really pay a special focus on the branches. But it also talks about, something that you've touched on, which is the issue around who can stand. I mean, it looks at the fact that if you've been found guilty of being charged with unethical or immoral conduct, serious crimes, you can't stand, found guilty by a disciplinary committee for contravening ANC code of conduct. And, some of those, who are suspended cannot stand despite them, waiting for an outcome of whatever process. What implications does this then have for the conference?
Yeah, I think that issue is going to be under the spotlight because the different understandings and interpretations with regard to the step-aside principle. I think maybe the ANC was hasty in terms of implementing that principle. I think at the moment it's just a question of one faction trying to entrench its hegemony, applying it in a way that is questionable. So it's something that is going to be discussed. Either way, whichever faction wins that debate, I think will be likely to win the entire conference.
And Dr. Breakfast, they talk about how it's going to be important, and they're saying that those who are vying for these leadership positions will also need to open their books and declare when it comes to who's funding them, because there's also going to be some documents that need to be handed in, including the scrutinization of some of the bank statements. Is this enough, to prevent what we've seen before when it comes to who funds some of these, contestations within the party?
When we were throughout history, for argument's sake, let's say covering the period of 1991 until to date, there has never been any leader of the ANC that has ever ascended to the helm of power without being financed by capital. In particular, mineral energy complex. And that begs the question about democracy within the ANC, the will of the branches within the ANC. I'm not sure if that is going to change. It can change in theory, but I can bet my bottom dollar in practice that is not going to change. People are bought at the last minute in the conferences of the ANC. That is the DNA of the ANC.
And when we then, as we then round up our conversation, one other thing that they're hoping to do here is that they're trying to prevent what they call slate politics, because we've seen, even in this document, they say that no one is allowed to come with a predetermined outcome of some lists, of some sorts, to try and say who should be in what position. In fact, people must be looked at according to their track records. But just as recent as some of the regional conferences that we've seen, it has been filled with slate politics. So the feasibility of this happening just before December, do you see it being adhered to?
No, I don't see it being adhered to. Because even the committee, that is proposing this framework, even some of its members, they have also vested interest in some of the outcomes of these conferences. So how can it be that they are the ones now who are trying to determine how things should, unfold? So it's all talk, no action, in my view.
In 10 seconds, could we see a split in December?
Well, the jury is out. Let's see how it goes.
All right, let's see, Dr. Breakfast, how it goes, and see if indeed you might, be willing to talk more on that issue, because some are talking about it in the public domain. But let's leave it there with you for now. Thank you so much for your time this evening. That's Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast there. As we were looking at these rules for nominations and election of, NEC members, the ANC really releasing that 11-page document from its electoral committee that talks about the rules, how things are going to unfold come December. So it's going to be interesting, especially if you take some time to read this particular document.